Thank you for being my brother. When I was 10 years old, my parents died on their way to pick up my brother from prison. At the funeral home, I stared at the man kneeling by the caskets-my brother, just released after serving 5 years. I rushed at him and shoved him with all my strength. This is all your fault. If you hadn't been in prison, Mom and Dad wouldn't have gone to get you. They wouldn't be dead. Damian stumbled from my push, but didn't look up. He just kept praying harder. From that day on, I never called him my brother again. Mom kept treasures in an old metal box. Young and curious as I was, I couldn't resist sneaking a look when the adults weren't home. Inside the box was a very old ultrasound report. It read, umbilical cord blood match successful. Donor, fetus. Recipient, Damian? Damian was my brother, 15 years older than me. For as long as I could remember, he'd been in prison. Mom and Dad never talked about what he'd done. But every time they came back from visiting him, Mom's eyes would be swollen from crying, and Dad would chain smoke in silence all night. Before I turned 10, everything I knew about my brother amounted to this: a blurry name, a stranger who made our parents cry, and the entire reason for my existence. Yes, I knew. I was never the product of my parents' love. I was just proof of how much they loved him. Mom's health was poor. She risked a late-life pregnancy with me only because Damian had leukemia and needed cord blood from a newborn to survive. The day I was born, Damian's surgery was a success. And me? I was just a useful tool in this family. Karma's funny that way. Who would have thought the brother wrapped in our parents' love would commit murder and end up behind bars? I was 5 that year. I was too young to remember why Damian went to prison. Not that it mattered. What mattered was that I would go from being the family's tool to being Mom and Dad's only child. That didn't last long. When I turned 10, Damian was released. Mom and Dad left early that morning, full of hope about giving him a fresh start. Then the news came. A truck's brakes had failed. It crashed into their car. Dad died instantly. Mom held on until we got to the hospital. She only said one thing to me: Claire, take care of your brother. I didn't understand. Why was I supposed to take care of him when I was the child who needed taking care of? Before I could argue with her, Mom closed her eyes. At the funeral home, I looked at the stiff smiles in Mom and Dad's photos, then at the stranger kneeling before their caskets, my brother, whom I hadn't seen in 5 years. His forehead pounded against the floor, blood seeping out and mixing with his tears. Relatives whispered, their stares like needles in my back. Poor thing, losing her parents so young. Living with a murderer for a brother, what's going to happen to her? I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. Then I rushed at him and shoved with all my strength. This is all your fault. If you hadn't been in prison, Mom and Dad wouldn't have gone to get you. They wouldn't be dead. Damian stumbled, but didn't look up. He just kept hitting his head against the floor, harder than before. The night after the funeral, Damian found me in the dark living room. He wore an ill-fitting old shirt, his eyes sunken, looking like a skeleton. Claire. His voice was hoarse as he reached to touch my hair. I dodged away. Don't touch me, I said. His hand froze midair, then slowly dropped. We lived in a small town where there were no secrets. Everyone's business became everyone's gossip. So it didn't take long before everyone knew. Damian was out of prison. He was a murderer. Not only morally corrupt, but he'd also brought death to his own parents. And his little sister Claire had lost both parents at such a young age and now had to live with her killer brother. When I returned to school, my homeroom teacher gave me a pointed look during roll call. Claire, given your family's special circumstances, if you need anything, talk to me. The whole class turned to stare. During break, boys crowded around my desk, smirking. Claire, did your brother really kill someone? How'd he do it? With a knife or a rope? Are you gonna kill people too? I buried my face in my arms, pretending not to hear. Walking home from school, girls from another class pointed at me. That's her. Her brother's been to prison. Stay away from her. A murderer's sister can't be any good either. I ran home and threw my backpack on the floor. Damian was in the kitchen making noodles, wearing Mom's old apron, clumsily frying an egg. You're home, Claire? He turned around, forcing a smile. Dinner's almost ready. Looking at his face so similar to Dad's eyes suddenly exploded. Why did you come back? Why didn't you just die in prison? Do you know everyone's laughing at me? Saying I'm a murderer's sister. The pot of water boiled, steam obscuring his face. He turned off the stove, his back to me, shoulders trembling slightly. After a long time, he finally said, I'm sorry. That night, I heard him crying in the living room, suppressed, like a wounded animal whimpering. But I didn't go out there. I hugged Mom's pillow and told myself, I hate him. I had no obligation to understand or feel sorry for him. If it weren't for him, my mom and dad wouldn't have died in that accident. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be pointed at every single day. He was someone who'd only survived because of my cord blood, yet he repaid that debt by turning my life into chaos. I was sick of him. I hated him. Damian started working. During the day, he worked construction. At night, he helped at the market stalls, and late at night, he took on odd jobs assembling cardboard boxes. Probably because of the major surgery he'd had, his health was poor. He coughed constantly and always looked pale. But he spent every penny he earned on me. New backpack, new clothes, even books I mentioned in passing. I had to admit, Damian took good care of me. But my environment was still a swamp. In 8th grade, I ranked first in my year. For parent-teacher night, he borrowed a nicer shirt and combed his hair neatly. But the moment he walked into the classroom, the whispers started. That's Claire's brother? He looks pretty harmless. Hard to imagine. Murderers don't have it written on their faces. Throughout the whole meeting, he kept his head down, fingers gripping his knees tightly. On the way home, I followed behind him, watching his slightly hunched back, and suddenly said, Let's move away. He stopped but didn't turn around. Where to? Anywhere. I said, everyone here knows you're a murderer anyway. He was silent for a long time. Okay. A month later, we moved to a city 200 miles away. Damian used all our savings to rent a tiny studio apartment. We slept in bunk beds. He found work at an electronics factory, working rotating shifts on the assembly line. The night we moved in, I lay on the unfamiliar top bunk, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. Hey, I suddenly spoke. Rustling came from the lower bunk. Yeah. Why did you go to prison? Silence. Long, suffocating silence. Just when I thought he wouldn't answer, he said quietly, I did something wrong. What wrong thing? Something very bad. His voice was soft as a sigh. Claire, don't ask anymore. Just know that I'm sorry to you. Sorry to Mom and Dad, that's enough. Just know that I'm sorry to you. Sorry to Mom and Dad, that's enough. I turned to face the wall. Always like this. Forever like this. I was never entitled to know the truth. Apparently, Myra sees do nap pen. After working at the electronics factory for half a year, Damian caught the eye of the boss's daughter. The boss's daughter was named Vivian, 5 years younger than Damian, fresh out of college, sent by her father to learn management at the factory. Supposedly, the moment she saw Damian, she couldn't look away. Fine, I'll admit Damian was good-looking. Even I couldn't deny it. Despite being malnourished, despite always looking exhausted, he'd inherited all of our parents' best features: deep eyes, a straight nose, and when he was quiet, a kind of broken beauty. Vivian pursued him so openly that the whole factory knew. She brought him meals, medicine, even kept him company when he worked late. His co-workers all urged him. Damian, just say yes. That's the boss's daughter. You'd skip 20 years of struggle. Damian always shook his head. I'm not worthy. Until Vivian's father, Mr. Palmer himself, came to talk to him. F5. Damian came home very late that night and sat in the dark living room, smoking cigarette after cigarette. He never usually smoked. What's wrong? I couldn't help asking. He stubbed out his cigarette, his voice dry. Mr. Palmer knows I was in prison. My heart sank. Of course. The background check came through. That was it. He'd lose his job. We couldn't stay in this city anymore. He asked me about what happened back then, Damian continued. I told him everything. I closed my eyes in despair. And then, And then, Damian looked up, his eyes strangely bright in the darkness. He said next month has an auspicious date and asked if I wanted a traditional or Western-style wedding. I was stunned. He must be crazy, I thought. Mr. Palmer must be insane to want a murderer for a son-in-law. But good for him being crazy, I also thought. After all, the Palmer family was truly wealthy. Who wouldn't want to latch onto a family like theirs? The wedding was simple, just 10 tables set up in the factory cafeteria. Damian wore a rented suit, looking like a puppet. Vivian wore a white wedding dress, smiling sweetly. During the toast, she walked up to me, her expression complicated. "You're Claire, right?" She raised her glass. "We're family now." I raised my soda, without saying anything. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. On their wedding night, Damian moved into the Palmer family's 2-story house. I stayed in the rental apartment, thinking I could finally have some peace. The next morning, Damian came to get me. "Pack your things. You're moving in." "I'm not going." "Claire," for the first time, he used such a firm tone. "You have to."
"Why?"
"Vivian obviously doesn't like me." "Because you're my sister." Damian looked at me, his eyes suddenly reddening. "You're my only family left in this world, Claire. I can't leave you behind." In the end, I moved in. Vivian prepared a room for me north-facing, small, but clean. She was polite on the surface, but that politeness carried an icy distance. I could feel it. She hated me. Not me as a person, but the identity of Damian's sister living at the Palmers. I describe it as living under someone else's charity. Vivian never mistreated me. Food, clothes, everything even better than what many of my classmates had. But she barely spoke to me, looking at me like I was a defective product she had no choice but to accept. Damian was caught in the middle, growing quieter and quieter. He got promoted to team leader at the factory, became busier, and when he came home, he still had to deal with Vivian and her extremely controlling father. I could see his exhaustion, but he never complained. When I was 15, I got into Central High, the best high school in the state. Most importantly, Central was a boarding school. The day I got my acceptance letter, Damian was happy as a kid, specially cooking a whole table of dishes. Vivian was happy, too happier than Damian even. At dinner, she gave me a genuinely warm smile for once. "Claire's so impressive. Boarding school is great, you can focus on your studies." I understood what she meant. I'd be boarding, so she wouldn't have to see me every day anymore. The night before school started, Damian came to my room and handed me a bank card. "The pin is your birthday. If you need anything, buy it. Don't try to save money." "Does Vivian know?" "Yes." He wasn't telling the truth. I could see the unease in his eyes. "Don't worry," I said. "I'll study hard and become independent soon. Then, I won't be a burden to you guys anymore." Damian opened his mouth to say something but ended up just ruffling my hair. "Claire's all grown up." His palm was warm, but I pulled away. I did well at school. Nobody knew my family background. I could finally be a normal student. Good grades, a few friends I could talk to, and sometimes I'd even dream about the future. I'd go to college far, far away from here. Get away from this place completely. Get away from Damian completely. When I came home for winter break in 10th grade, I noticed Damian had lost a lot of weight. "It's nothing, just work stress." He brushed it off. But Vivian seemed unusually anxious, snapping at everything. One night I got up for water and heard them arguing in the master bedroom. "You have to be hospitalized. How long do you think you can keep dragging this out?" "Vivian, just wait a bit longer. The factory's been—" "The factory, the factory. Do you have a death wish?" I quietly retreated to my room, an ominous feeling settling in my chest. After New Year's, Damian collapsed on the factory floor. The diagnosis: end-stage kidney failure. He needed a transplant. In the hospital corridor, the smell of disinfectant was pungent. I looked at Damian unconscious in the bed. He was so thin he looked skeletal, his hands covered in needle marks. Vivian sobbed into her hands, shoulders shaking. The attending physician was a family friend of the Palmers, Dr. Harrison, and he was blunt. "It's best to have a close family member donate." Highest success rate, lowest rejection risk. I almost blurted out. Use mine. Vivian's head snapped up, eyes bloodshot. No. Why not? I was confused. I'm his sister. The match rate would be high. I said no. Her voice was shrill. Claire, this isn't your concern. When Damian woke up, I brought it up again. His reaction was extreme. He nearly jumped out of the hospital bed. Absolutely not. Claire, don't even think about it.
Why?
You're my BR dash. Because I'm your brother. He grabbed my hand with frightening strength. Listen to me. Study hard, go to college. My situation, I'll handle it myself. How will you handle it? Waiting for a donor could take forever. The doctor said your condition dash. Then I'll wait. He cut me off, his eyes more severe than I'd ever seen. Claire, if you dare go behind my back to get tested, I will never forgive you. Ever. I was scared by the determination in his eyes. What confused me more was Vivian's attitude. Someone who hated me so much should be thrilled at the idea of me trading a kidney for her husband's life. But this time, she stood firmly with Damian. I went to find Dr. Harrison, wanting to secretly get tested for compatibility. Dr. Harrison looked at me, hesitating. Claire, your brother specifically told me not to use you as a match.
Why?
He said. Dr. Harrison sighed. He said you're not suitable. We haven't even tested yet. How does he know I'm not suitable? Dr. Harrison avoided my eyes. Your brother said you were injured as a child. Your health isn't good. The excuse was too flimsy. I didn't know anything about being unhealthy. I rarely even caught colds, but I was helpless. Damian and Vivian were like two walls, blocking me completely from the truth. Damian started dialysis 3 times a week. Each time he came back, he looked like he'd died and been revived Dashin, barely able to speak. But he insisted on not renting a place near the hospital. He had to come home. I knew why. He was trying to save on rent. Vivian quit her job at the factory to take care of him full-time. She visibly withered, but her patience with Damian seemed endless. Sometimes I'd get up at night and see her sitting by his bed, holding his hand, crying silently. That once proud boss's daughter now seemed as humble as dust. They say good people meet lovers who'll love them to the bone. Even after all the bad things Damian had done, he still had this blessing. First semester of 12th grade, Damian got a kidney. The surgery went smoothly. The doctor said the new kidney was functioning well in his body. The day Damian was discharged, the weather was beautiful. He stood at the hospital entrance, squinting at the sun. Murmurina, 3 years, finally able to see sunshine this bright again. Vivian cried, uncontrollably. The weight in my heart finally lifted. Damian would get better. I could focus on my college entrance exams. 3 months before the exams, school organized comprehensive health screenings, supposedly to help with college applications. The health report came in a manila envelope, given directly to each student. I opened mine and flipped through page by page. Vision 2020, blood pressure normal, liver function normal. When I got to the abdominal ultrasound, I stopped. On the report, the left kidney was clearly shown with a note, normal size and shape. Where the right kidney should be was blank. Next to it was a line in small print. No discernible kidney structure detected in right kidney region. I stared at that line for a very long time. My mind went completely blank. Then I grabbed the report and rushed home. Vivian was in the kitchen brewing medicine for Damian, the kitchen filled with the bitter smell of herbs. I stood in the kitchen doorway. The report crumpled in my fist. Vivian had her back to me, gently stirring the clay pot with a spoon. Brown liquid churned, releasing an intensely bitter smell, a smell that had permeated every corner of this house for 3 years. I slammed the report on the counter. What does this mean? She glanced at it. Her hand trembled, and the spoon fell into the pot. A few seconds of silence felt like hours. So you know now. She finally spoke, her voice eerily calm. What does this mean? My voice shook. Why am I missing a kidney? When did it happen? Why don't I know anything? Vivian turned off the heat and strained the medicine into a bowl. Her movements were slow and steady in a way that made my heart race. Let your brother drink his medicine first, she said. It doesn't work as well when it's cold. Vivian, I raised my voice. I'm asking you a question. Show some respect. I'm your sister-in-law. Vivian sighed. You know I've never liked you. I know, I said through gritted teeth. So what? What does that have to do with me missing a kidney? Did you do something to me? The words came out, and even I was shocked at what I'd just implied. How could I think that? But Vivian laughed a laugh full of bitterness. Claire, is that really what you think of me and your brother? That we'd take your kidney for money, or for whatever reason? I opened my mouth but couldn't speak. Take this medicine upstairs. She pushed the warm bowl into my hands. Then come to the study. I'll tell you about your missing kidney, and about your brother's 5 years. Everything. I carried the medicine bowl upstairs, hands shaking so badly, the liquid nearly spilled. Damian's door was slightly ajar. He was leaning against the headboard with his eyes closed, still pale, but so much better than during dialysis. Hearing me, he opened his eyes. Seeing it was me, his lips curved naturally into a smile. Claire's home? You're early today. Yeah, practice exam ended early. I handed him the medicine. He took it without even frowning and drank it all in one go. Years of illness had made him numb to bitterness. He asked casually, exams are coming up soon. Take care of yourself. I looked into his concerned eyes. The words, I'm missing a kidney, stuck in my throat. I couldn't ask. If I told him, how would he react? Panic? Guilt? Or would he keep hiding it? In the end, I said nothing. Damian handed me the bowl. Go eat dinner. Studying is hard work. You need to eat more. I fled from his room. In the study, Vivian was already sitting on the couch. On the coffee table in front of her sat a rusty metal box I'd never seen before. Sit. She pointed to the armchair across from her. I sat, eyes fixed on the box. Vivian opened it. Inside were just a few neatly folded but yellowed photocopies. She pushed them toward me. The first was an excerpt from a crime scene investigation report. One child's shoe, found 2 meters east of the sandbox. Blood drop trajectory, extending from sandbox edge to altercation site, pattern consistent with dripping while child was running. One kitchen knife, blade length 12 centimeters. Fingerprints of Wong, deceased, detected on handle in gripping position. Fingerprints of Damian's right thumb and index finger detected on mid-blade section, in overlapping pattern. Wong's wound examination, single penetration, wound channel angled approximately 15 degrees upward, depth approximately 8 centimeters, piercing the heart. The second was a supplementary explanation on wound formation issued by the medical examiner. The characteristics of the chest wound on Wong are consistent with Damian's statement that during the struggle for the knife, Wong lunged forward, both parties lost balance and fell simultaneously, and the blade accidentally penetrated during impact. This scenario has plausible explanation from a mechanical physics perspective. The possibility cannot be ruled out that during intense struggle and changing body positions, Wong's own forward momentum combined with falling inertia jointly caused the wound. The third page contained several very brief witness statements. Witness A first heard a child screaming terribly, like they were scared to death, then saw 2 men fighting. Didn't see clearly what started it. Witness B, that tall, staggering guy seemed to be holding something shiny, gesturing toward the sandbox. Then that young man rushed over. Witness C just saw 2 people fall down, then the tall guy stopped moving. So much blood. The kid's waist area was covered in blood too. Kept crying. No crime scene photos, but these cold, objective words painted a more vivid picture than any image could. My mind automatically reconstructed that sunny, yet horrifying afternoon. A raised knife, my brother lunging forward, searing pain, warm blood, and endless terror and screaming. Buried fragments suddenly surged up. Blinding sunlight, rough sand scraping my knees, a tall dark shadow looming over me, reeking of alcohol and indescribable malice. Then tearing, agonizing pain, and my brother's distorted scream. Claire dash. Ah. I clutched my suddenly throbbing right side. It felt as if, years later, a cold blade was piercing through me again. Cold sweat instantly drenched my back. Remembering now, Vivian's voice seemed to come from far away. She pulled out another more fragile paper A photocopy of the county hospital emergency record. Patient, Claire, age 5, sharp force trauma to right flank, kidney injury, massive hemorrhage, shock. Vivian paused. After transferring to the city hospital, surgery removed a third of your punctured right kidney. The remaining function was always poor. Within a few years it atrophied completely. That's why you can't donate a kidney. Not because you're incompatible, but because you don't have a spare kidney to give. But the verdict. I looked at that glaring criminal judgment excerpt. The words, intentional injury causing death, and excessive defense, burned like red-hot iron. With all this evidence, with what the witnesses said, why was he still convicted? My voice was hoarse. Because someone died, Vivian's tone carried deep exhaustion and a trace of barely contained anger. What your parents and the lawyer fought tooth and nail for was self-defense. They argued that when a drunk man threatens a 5-year-old child with a knife, any brother rushing to disarm him acts justly. In that life-or-death struggle, you can't precisely control the outcome. But she drew a breath. The judge at the time believed that once the knife was taken, the danger was over. Whether the struggle was still ongoing, whether that stab was accidental, whether Wong still had attacking capability, they preferred to believe your brother could have stopped after getting the knife but didn't. And that made it excessive. Your parents appealed, fighting for this exact point. They believed their son was protecting his daughter, that in his panic he couldn't hold back, that he wasn't a bad person. But Vivian's voice dropped. Your brother himself accepted the conviction. He said no matter what, someone died. That was fact. He deserved punishment. But he asked your parents one thing dash. Don't let Claire know the details. Don't let her remember. Don't let her spend her whole life carrying the burden that her brother went to prison for her. I collapsed into the couch, frozen to my core, vision blurred. So the murderer label my brother carried was the price he paid for protecting me. So all these years of righteous hatred I'd driven every bit of it into someone who'd risked his life for me, who'd silently swallowed all the injustice. Why? I covered my face as tears poured through my fingers. Not crying, nearly collapsing, sobbing. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me know? I hated him for so many years. I said so many terrible things. Vivian watched me trembling, curled up on the couch. Claire, your brother regrets 2 things in his life. First, not protecting you well enough. Letting you get hurt. Second, that stab, he couldn't control the force. She reached to touch my head, but stopped midway. But he's never regretted saving you, she said. Not once. That night, I curled up on my bed, clutching my right side as if it still ached. In the darkness, those case file phrases and fragmented memories flashed repeatedly. I finally understood. I wasn't some life-saving tool. I was an extra in this family. My life had been fiercely protected by someone who used his own reputation and health as a shield. And what had I done? The next morning, I came out with eyes swollen like walnuts. Damian sat at the dining table eating porridge. Seeing me, he froze. Claire? I walked over and hugged him. His body went rigid. The spoon clattered onto the table. Damian, I know everything now, I mumbled into his shoulder. I'm sorry. Vivian and Damian exchanged glances. He understood. His hand slowly rose and gently patted my back. Silly Claire, his voice choked. I'm the one who should be sorry. I didn't protect you well enough. That day, we talked more than we had in 10 years. He talked about prison life, about mom and dad crying at every visit, about how he feared me asking them, when is he coming home? I talked about the school gossip, the pointing and staring, how much I'd hated him. We talked all day, cried all day. Vivian quietly made dinner, set it on the table, and quietly left, giving us space. That evening, I stood on the balcony watching the city lights. Damian came over and handed me warm milk. Claire, he said, it's all in the past. It's not. I shook my head. Damian, I want to study law. He froze. I want to study criminal law. I looked into his eyes. Damian's eyes reddened. Don't, Claire, don't do this for me. It's not just for you, I said. It's for everyone like you. He opened his mouth, but finally just ruffled my hair. I exceeded expectations on my college entrance exams and got into the law school at a top university. On move-in day, Damian and Vivian took me to the train station. Damian's health had recovered well. His face had color now. Vivian held his arm, eyes gentle. She no longer looked at me with that icy politeness. Call often, Damian said. Okay. If you need money, just say so. I know. As the train pulled away, I watched from the window as they stood there until they became two tiny dots. During 4 years of college, I practically lived in the library. I wore out criminal law textbooks and patched them back together. Studied over 1,000 cases. My advisor knew my story and took special care of me, involving me in related research projects. Sophomore year, the Supreme Court issued new guidance significantly loosening the standards for determining defensive limits. I immediately printed the guidance and sent it with a brief situation summary to the intermediate court back home. The reply: petition denied. The verdict had been final for over 10 years, not eligible for retrial. I didn't give up. 04. Second year of graduate school, with my advisor's full support and recommendation, I legally requested access to the original electronic case files from my brother's case. This time, I wasn't just a sister getting fragments from my sister-in-law. I was a systematically trained law student. I submitted photos and thick appeal materials again. This time, the prosecutor's office initiated a review. On retrial day, Damian and Vivian both came. I sat at the defense table, watching my brother in the gallery. He sat perfectly straight, hand gripping Vivian's tightly. When the judge announced the verdict, the courtroom was so quiet you could hear breathing. The original defendant, Damian, to stop an ongoing violent crime seriously endangering another person's safety, took defensive action, causing the death of the unlawful aggressor. According to law, this does not constitute excessive defense. The original verdict is overturned. Verdict: not guilty. The gavel fell with a crisp sound. Damian closed his eyes, tears sliding down his cheeks. Vivian hugged him, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood there watching them, suddenly remembering what Mom said before she died. Take care of your brother. I finally understood. It wasn't a demand. It was a trust. My brother's case became a landmark example, written into textbooks. Reporters wanted interviews. We declined. Damian said he wanted a quiet life. I became a lawyer specializing in criminal defense. My first case was a father who'd accidentally killed an attacker while protecting his daughter. I argued for his innocence. We won. Damian and Vivian opened a small convenience store back home. Business was good. Every year on my birthday, they unfailingly came to Beijing. Damian personally cooked a whole table of dishes. This year for my birthday, he made braised pork again. When I made my wish, I closed my eyes. Damian asked, "What did you wish for, Claire?" I opened my eyes, looked at the gray in his temples, and smiled. If I tell you, it won't come true. But in my heart I said, Damian, if there's a next life, I still want to be your sister. Except next time, I'll protect you." Fireworks bloomed outside, lighting up the night sky. Oh, someone's actually setting off fireworks. What timing! Vivian raised her glass. "Come on, cheers." 3 glasses clinked with a crisp sound. "Here's to us," Damian said. "May all our days ahead be good ones."
To us.
I smiled in agreement. Vivian nodded emphatically. The fireworks continued blooming, one after another. I knew the scars remained. The memories remained. Our parents would never come back. Those 5 years behind bars, over a decade of stigma, the marks left by years of illness, none could be completely erased. But some things, after breaking, become whole in a different way. Like him and me. Like this family. Like that afternoon over 20 years ago, the instant he rushed toward me, without hesitation. The light from that instant was enough to illuminate every road thereafter. How lucky I am that you're my brother.